Good morning. This is the third episode in the second season with Marguerite Sacco. Actually, Marguerite, I'm really in a great pleasure to have you today. And actually, we started the last time we started talking about the ego states and the symbiosis. And I believe today we are going to continue talking about the symbiotic chain. So welcome and how are you?
Oh, thanks, Sharaf. It's lovely to see you again and fun to be here. And I'm looking forward to this. It's an interesting piece about the symbiotic chain, and it particularly talks about ego states and the relationships in terms of ego states in the workplace. And I do think it gives a lot of insight into what's going on in an organization. So it's a very interesting piece. Yeah.
Yeah,
So thank you for having me here again.
Yeah, thank you for sharing your experience on that and actually how the transaction and analysis is introduced to the workplace and how it's used and its applications. Really, it's very generous for me to share this experience. I really appreciate it. So, where do you like to start today?
All right. I think what we can do is a little bit of a recap about ego states because it's been a while. And we spoke about, let me see if I can. We've got the screen shared right at the moment.
Yes.
And on that is the drawing of a symbiosis. But let me first just unpack that in terms of the three circles. What you're looking at on the slide is three circles and three circles, parent, adult, and child ego states within two people. All right, so these are two people, and within all of us, we have this ego state known as the parent, an ego state called the adult, and an ego state called the child. You could say these are states of being. They are corresponding thoughts, feelings, and behavior, and you can see them taking place right in front of you. So you can notice that a person is in their parent ego state when they are communicating with you, or look at that, they're in child when they are communicating with you. And the important thing with that is to understand that we're not talking about an actual child. We're talking about us as grown-ups. We're talking in this particular context in organizations, and that even in that environment, people will sometimes be in their child ego state or in their parent ego state. And we're able to notice that and then go, well, if that's what's happening, what can we do with it? What can we do about it? Does it work? And that's the adult part of us going, is this working for me and others? If it's not working, what can I do about it? What are my choices? So that's a brief catch up around ego states. Is there anything you want to ask about that, Sharaf?
Yes, actually, the ego states are, in a way, when we talk about them, we rarely observe ourselves stepping into the three. So how can working with organizations and seeing different situations, maybe doing some analysis based on the ego states, and maybe letting people observe themselves, having some
Yes,
self-awareness
yes.
about what is happening. So normally, how this is done?
How is it done?
Yeah.
So there are different ways of doing this, interesting ways, and the one that I think is really fantastic is to take a team and to first teach the ego states and then get them all to do what is called an egogram. It's a questionnaire where once you've done the questionnaire, it gives you a reflection of your dominant ego states for each individual. And then if you combine those, you can actually work out the dominant ego state of the team itself.
Wow.
And then the team can sit back, reflect on that, and go, wow, the dominant ego state among us is controlling parent. That makes so much sense because this is what happens when you have too many controlling parents in the room. Or the dominant ego state is child. And no wonder we don't get any work done around here. That kind of thing. so that is one way to do an analysis of your team. You could then, in fact, do a whole organization, which would be a massive project, and identify with all the teams what is the dominant ego state throughout. And another one to do that I think is more important almost would be to do this work with senior leaders, with the top leaders in an organization. And that leads into the issue of symbiosis, because it is only natural that in an organization we look to the leaders for guidance. It's their decision to form this organization. It's their ideas that have made this happen. Now I'm an employee and I look at them and I go, what do you want me to do? So senior leaders need to be aware of their ego states and their communication style, because what they project in terms of ego states is what they will then get in return. So if I, as a leader, am perpetually in a rescuing, dominant, controlling position, where I believe I have to do everything around here, I have to micromanage, I have to watch you, I don't trust you at all, that's a parent ego state, then what do I teach people in the workplace to expect? And how do I then, what am I asking from them in return? Inevitably, child. So I'm saying to them, I do all the thinking and I do all the reprimanding, deciding, controlling, everything. And I don't want that from you. So what is left in the other person? All they get to do is be child. They have to exclude their other ego states, parent and adult. So it starts for me in leadership. And the best work is to get leadership to look at their ego states individually, their egogram as a team, and then for them to learn, wow, if this is who we are, and if this is how we are communicating in our environment, what is it that we would be inviting in our employees? So there's a large ownership there. My biggest frustration with organizational work is being asked to come and do the work to fix them, being the staff, employees, teams. They need fixing. Where's the manager of the team? Oh no, I don't have time for this. And they're not in the workshop. And of course, in the workshop, and I had it again last week, the delegates say to me, but why aren't our managers in on this? Where are they? So I just want to put that out there, that the biggest call is for senior management to start the process with an analysis of themselves first, before they decide who else needs fixing in the workplace. So those are a few of the ways of applying just the notion, or the theory, shall I say, of ego states in the workplace. Sharaf, does that help answer some of your question there?
Yes, it is very clear and clear. And what you're saying about the assessment of the ego states and the egogram, it seems that there are some assessments that are out there that are maybe they are verified, and these are questionnaires that are research based and stuff. Mm-hmm.
Yes. So there is a well-known, verified, validated ego state questionnaire that can be used. Yeah. I do have my reservations about the questionnaires, but this is just my personal impression, is that we are very good at kidding ourselves, at telling ourselves that, it's not me who's the problem. And so when we do the questionnaire, we come out with everybody's got a very high adult. And I'm not so sure that's accurate. But it's an interesting starting point. I find the best kind of work is done where we are vulnerable and open and admit and say, I know my egogram. If I was to draw it just myself with no questionnaire, this is what it looks like, and this is my truth. So, yeah, and I do a combination of those when I do this work.
So that's amazing. Thank you for sharing this. So now I guess we are after introducing this to the team, and actually I believe that the key that you said about the senior leaders, having a stance, of being parents or taking only the decision and expecting the others not to be included, and then they complain about it, that's taking responsibility for this stuff.
Exactly.
So is this what were saying about symbiosis. That's where symbiosis happens.
Yes,
Yes.
exactly. Yes. So what happens in a symbiosis is where exactly what I've described. One person says, I'll be parent and adult, and you be child. And the other person goes, oh, what a good idea, because I don't have to do any thinking for myself, and I don't have to take ownership or responsibility for anything. I can just look at you, and you can tell me what to do. And of course, I love what you just said, Sharaf, that then leadership complains, and go, I can't believe it. If I'm not there, nothing happens. And they're surprised about this. Genuinely, they're not doing it on purpose. They genuinely don't realize that they are causing that type of dynamic in their relationships. So, of course, nothing happens because when I'm there, I do everything. And I don't trust other people to be able to think for themselves. And that is the symbiosis that you can see on the slide, and the lines drawn that show that, in fact, what happens is there are two of us, but we're sharing only one set of ego states. There's one parent, adult, and child that is being cathected, that is being enacted, used, and the rest is in the background.
Yeah.
Quite another interesting one would be if you have a leader who takes the child position. And I have seen that in one particular organization, comes to mind, where the leaders, two brothers, were real playboys, should I say. And one of them would come into the workplace, very successful, dynamic, and because this dominant ego state was child, they were super attractive people who relied on their personalities, the lovely child stuff, to get clients and to make things happen. So there's nothing wrong with child in the workplace, and it made them successful. But the load on the employees who were carrying the role of parent and adult was enormous. One of them used to walk into the workplace every day and say, are we having fun today? And you would see people just sweating under the load of having to take responsibility, and they have to pretend to be having fun, and they're not. So that's a symbiosis, flipped, where you can get an organizational situation, symbiotic relationship, where actually leadership is in child and doesn't want to know. Don't bring me your problems. Just get on with it,
Yeah.
Also would love to get a new idea and go, everybody, drop everything. And that means I have to be adult about this because and I have to figure out, okay, my leader is saying drop everything. If I don't drop everything, I'm going to get fired. I have to manage that. At the same time, I have clients that I have to manage, and I can't drop everything. How do I juggle all of this? Enormous stress. So it's just another picture of how that symbiosis could look.
Yeah, that's amazing. How you created this. It's amazing because I saw this before, but I couldn't actually analyze what can this be named.
Really.
And now, and how you articulated it. It's the leader taking a child stance. Yes, it makes a lot of sense. Yeah. And sometimes there are parents, who take a child stance. There are parents at home. There are many things. So, thank you, Marguerite.
Yeah, and then Sharaf, I don't know how to move the slide on because I want to show the next slide.
Okay, so the symbiotic chain. So just select the second slide on PowerPoint, and it will show. Go to PowerPoint.
On PowerPoint, thank you. Okay, that's brilliant. I like this. Is it there?
Yes. Shows very well.
Okay, so there it is. So what I'd like to talk about then is in another interesting piece that was brought to us by Quinton Holderman, where he identified in workplaces that there's actually a chain of symbiosis that can take place. So you've got at the top of the chain, of course, is the leader. And I'm going to draw this, excuse me, but my drawing and whatnot, I don't have the best, steadiest hand. But if we draw the symbiotic chain between the top leader and his subordinates, something Holderman points out is that he calls the leader the pillar. So they are the very top this whole thing, and they hold it together. I mean, if they're all linked and chained together, then if the pillar falls over, everybody falls over. So that's an important piece in his article. I won't spend too much time on that, but let me just keep drawing this if I can. So what's happening here, sorry, this looks such a mess. I'm really bad at using although I
No, no,
love using it.
it's very clear. Thank you for that.
I hope it's very clear and very messy. Is that you've got a whole lot of symbiosis happening. So the guy at the top is using his parent and his adult, and he's aiming that at the next level, the child, right? Now that person goes, all right, so I can't use my parent and adult and manage upwards. I must only look up towards him for direction in my child ego state. But then what can I do? Because I've got my parent and my adult still, that's a part of my being. Where can that get used? Oh, well, I'll just use it on the next level. And the next level goes, oh, okay, I must look upwards and then use this downwards. So I'm going to stop sharing because I made a terrible mess. I hope that helped.
Yeah, it helps a lot. Yeah, it's very clear. Yeah. And it makes a lot of sense,
Yeah, so I normally do that a whole lot better, but I'm not used to this environment. But yeah, so what he pointed out was that if we have three ego states, where is the energy of the other two ego states going to go? If we're only using one in relation to our immediate leader, it's going to be used on our subordinates. And it's also going to be used that way because I'm learning from this relationship. He manages me by parenting and adulting, and I must be a child. Well, then that must be right for how I manage others. And so it's
Okay.
passed all the way down the line, this form of leadership. And it's taught. And so you get to the lowest levels of leadership where you've got team leaders. And they've learned this is how I'm being led. So this is what I must impose on others. I mustn't trust them. I'm not trusted, so I mustn't trust them. I must do everything. I must be the parent and the adult.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So that's
you
the
have a question
chain.
now from Maureen Labouti. Yeah. And she's
Yeah. No.
saying, knowing life is very unpredictable and under stress, we can fluctuate between the parent-child ego states. What are the keys of getting everybody into an adult ego state?
Yeah. Oh, thanks, Maureen. That's a lovely question, and it's enormous. And let me think. The two things are that takes us to the subject of transactions. I think, first of all, of identifying your ego states and recognizing what you are dominantly using to communicate and in the workplace. So you need to know yourself first, and then identify the ego states of others and what am I inviting in them. And that's about transactions. So when I transact with another person, maybe I am transacting from my parent ego state. I'm aiming it at the child in them, and I'm getting a child response. If I want to change that, it's a choice. So I can change the transaction to something else. But I do want to point out that, and I wrote something on LinkedIn recently, and it's had quite a lovely response, where I don't want the message to be that adult to adult is the only acceptable transaction in life or in the workplace. Child to child is a beautiful transaction that can happen in the workplace, and it can work very effectively. So sometimes you might be in a situation, I'm just sort of ad-libbing as we go, but where you say, Maureen, life is unpredictable and under stress we can fluctuate. So perhaps we're under a horribly stressful situation. I actually am thinking of some colleagues of mine who they run their own training organization, and they had the opportunity to pitch for a massive client. And they got to the client's premises to do their pitch. And I remember them talking about it afterwards and saying they sat in the car and they both took this huge breath and they looked at each other and they said to each other, I'm so scared. And the other one went, so am I. This is terrifying. And then they kind of laughed. They were in child to child, relating to each other, being so frightened. Then they were able to invite the nurturing parent in each other to go, okay, we are okay. we're going to do this and we're going to be fine. So that was then a nurturing parent to nurturing parent transaction that got them to step out of the car, take their guts in their hands and walk into that presentation. And by the time they got there, through going through all their ego states, they were able to present in that adult to adult environment. I've had situations once when I started a cultural diversity workshop for a university, and I had senior lecturers in the group, and I was super challenged by the first question that came from one man, and he seemed decidedly affronted by having to be in the workshop. And he was quite aggressive. And we have choices of ego state. What should I use here? It doesn't have to be adult to adult. He's not in adult. What is he in? And what is he asking for? What will work? So would nurturing parent work? Would controlling parent maybe be necessary because this isn't working? And perhaps I need to say, you know what? I'm finding this quite dysfunctional, and perhaps you and I need to have a discussion outside. So you have choices, not only adult to adult. But what does happen often is that you can use a different ego state, express your child vulnerability. Say I'm as a leader here, I don't know what to do. I'm so taken aback by the situation that I don't know what to do. I need you, my team. Help me. That's child. And it evokes perhaps nurturing parent and some adult in them. But it's coming from the child. And then you can move to adult and go, okay, wow, now you've helped me with that. I feel better. I don't feel so vulnerable. Let's start thinking together and move into adult. So it's fluid and it changes, and it just gives you those choices. If adult to adult is not working, stop using it. Change the transaction to something and see how that works.
Yeah.
I can give you millions
Actually,
of examples.
yeah, I actually, yeah, I mean, in the last period, I saw people when you actually work with them in the adult to adult state, they don't understand it and relate to it. They're always used to being parent,
Yeah.
and in a way, whenever you step into an adult and you ask for their adult, you feel offended, in a way that you didn't actually boost their ego or boost their. So in a way, it's your choice either to parent them, come up and control them actually in a way, just to break their ego in a way, or just adjust the tone of the tonality or the way that of dealing, or you just accept being a child in the process and actually putting them in full responsibility. But
Yeah.
some people are really offended, by the dynamics of adult to adult communication.
Yeah. And then it might not work. And that's what you're saying. And then you need to do something differently. And the difference might be that you go, adult to adult isn't working. What is this person looking for in me? Do they need a bit of nurturing? Let me try that. I'll nurture, see what happens. Okay, now they are in weepy child. Okay, that's fine, and I'm nurturing and taking care of that. And now let me try moving to adult and ask an adult question. Gently, because you can combine ego states. I can, in a nurturing way, ask an adult question and see what I get. Has the shift moved? Are they now in adult? And they answer me in adult. Yes, maybe. Maybe there's a combination of adult, but still a bit weepy, but I'm getting an adult answer. Great, nurture that. That's a brilliant thought you've just had there. Let's work with that a little bit more. Until eventually you might end up in a pure adult to adult. Sometimes I've found I keep nurturing and I get nowhere. And it's that transaction that is complementary. And so the more I nurture, the more I get a child asking me to nurture, and I keep complementing the transaction with more nurturing. It's time to, and Sharaf, you said it. You said break the ego. And when you said that we don't want to break people down, but what you're talking about is actually cross the transaction. Break
Yeah,
the transaction between
yeah,
parent and child by shifting to something else. And that something else could even be to shift to child and go, I've tried everything. with you and I'm not getting anywhere and I don't know what to do. And that's saying my vulnerability. I don't know what to do. I've really tried everything. Kind of
Yeah.
laughing, kind of going, whoa, I give up. And then the other person's ego state is going to shift.
Yeah, that's very, very true.
Yeah.
So Maureen is actually saying great example and explanation. Thank you.
Thanks, Maureen.
Yeah, so that's thank you, Maureen.
Mm,
So I believe now we have 5 minutes to go. So and we've been through a lot. Thank you for your generosity sharing. So what can be, like the nugget coming out of the symbiotic chain and the symbiosis and the ego
mm,
states? What
mm.
is the core? Maybe wrapping up on
Yeah.
on yeah on this marvelous discussion.
Mm. I think the core is, first of all, to realize that we have to recognize and accept who we are first and foremost and how we are being, instead of identifying it in others. Another thing is the chain starts with the leader. So leadership needs to do this work for me first and foremost. And then to stop assuming that they do all the thinking and have to do all the thinking for others. And even if they were to identify their ego states and then say, wow, we want to do this with different levels of leadership, to not take that decision for themselves, because that's a parent-child transaction. So to say, let us consult with the next level of leadership, show them this and ask them for their involvement in how we take this forward. So identify your ego states and then involve others in decisions around how to break the symbiotic chain.
Okay, so that's amazing.
How's that?
Thank you. Yeah, that's amazing.
Thanks,
So,
Sharif.
Marguerite, so can you maybe talk about, how people can contact you for your services, or how can yeah.
So thanks, Sharif. My email address is on the screen at the moment. And as you know, because you are with me in the 101, I run the TA 101
Yeah.
online, and possibly in person. And next year we'll see. But for now, it's online 2 hours a week over 12 weeks, where I introduce all of the TA concepts. And there are many more than parent, adult, and child ego states. And
Yeah.
we interlink them and relate them. So there's a TA 101. And then my organizational work, where I'd go into an organization and they'd say, this is what we've got going on here. What can you do? What can you design? How can we address problems, issues, improve, change, and that kind of thing. So I'm presented with something by the organization, and then I design specifically for them some kind of interaction that will bring about change.
Yeah. Thank you, Marguerite. It's really generous from you to actually share this, and I believe that it's a very working with leaders and organizations to understand the dynamics and what builds the culture through transactional analysis is very beneficial actually to support them and really breaking through a transformation when they're aware of these habits. I guess, and understanding what ego states are, maybe what are dominant in the workplace, what kind of symbiotic chain is there, what kind of dynamics that are relevant to the workplace, and building the culture is actually a starting point, a very good starting point to actually start changing that and putting it in an intentional way and moving forward with a desired culture, building a desired
Yeah,
culture.
yeah, yeah. Lovely.
So
Thanks for
really,
your time, Sharaf, and this opportunity. I love chatting to you like this. It's such a nice thing to be doing on a Monday morning.
yeah, thank you. So I believe that our next episode will be on the 15th of, sorry, it's on the 15th of November, right?
Okay. Yeah,
Yeah. So it's
yeah.
that will be our next episode. So it's now currently it's
Hmm.
bi-weekly. And what will be our next episode? What we will be talking about?
Well, I'm thinking that we've moved into now, and for Maureen's question, we've moved into this idea of transactions and the dynamic nature of transactions. So maybe we could spend a half an hour talking about some more about transactions.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, we could do that. There's also scripts, organizational scripts we could talk about. So maybe I'll combine those transactions and scripts. How's that, Sharaf?
Yeah, that's amazing. You know, the last session in TA 101, we were talking about scripts, and it was really being aware of, you know, or looking at the scripts that formed many of the things that I'm doing in my life. You know, it was really illuminating, but at the same time, it was in a way very heavy and painful.
It
It
is.
wasn't
It
it
is.
wasn't
Yeah.
easy. It wasn't easy. Yeah.
Yeah.
So actually, look
Yeah.
at it. It may seem like, you know, a very trivial thing that we have scripts, but when we look at them and see how they are serving you or working against you, in a way, it's a new illumination.
Mm.
It's a new era in your life where you can get actually, you know. So what can I do about it? You know. So
Mm.
I'm asking
Yeah.
myself
Yeah.
last week. Yeah.
Lovely. Yeah. And we
So,
will continue scripts this 101 this week
yeah.
because there's more to be said.
Amazing.
Great. All
So
right.
thank you.
Lovely.
I,
Thanks, Sharaf.
I really love it,
Good.
and thank you for this amazing episode. And meet on 15th of November, inshallah. Okay, bye bye.
Great. Thanks,
Okay,
Sharaf. Bye bye. Enjoy the rest of your week.
Marguerite. Okay, you too. Okay, bye bye.